And the biggest challenge is that goods can move in very easily in Europe, but not the black person. All the resources that are coming from our own African countries can enter freely into the European Union, but not the black person. And it's not by coincidence, that is the way it has been planned. So understanding why these treaties were made and how they affect us and how we are perceived by these treaties is very important. So it is just something on paper.
Hello and welcome. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you in this program. My name is Omar Buami, and you're currently in contact with Black World Speak. In this program, we present our Black stars, those who write the future of Africa, the Black world, and those whose initiative are writing the future of Africa. We also discuss some of the pressing issues on which they are working. We are discussing today with JenniferKamau, and JenniferKamau is the spokesperson for the International Women's Space, IWS, an organization she co-founded in 2012. IWS is an anti-racist feminist collective made up of refugee and migrant women, as well as women without that experience. In 2019, Jennifer initiated the Break Isolation Group, BIG, within the IWS, a self-organized working group of refugee women, a space to come together and organize against isolation and discrimination in the asylum process. She is part of the expert commission for anti-racist, anti-Black racism, that for the state of Berlin, and she coordinates the IWS support campaign for the BIPOC refugees from the war in Ukraine. JenniferKamau, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
So, let's quickly jump into the subject of today. You are the co-creator or co-initiator of the international IWS. So how did the idea to co-create a feminist and anti-racist organization, how did the idea come about?
I think at the time we were forming International Women's Space, we didn't think we were forming a feminist organization because it was in the Oranienplatz movement. It was a movement that was started in 2012. And this movement started as a result of an Iranian man committing suicide in Würzburg. And this triggered a discussion amongst people who are in the asylum system, and they came together to protest in Berlin. They made a walk and protests to Berlin to confront the politicians onto the reasons why people were being kept in the conditions they were being kept in. So in 2012, in the month of October, we converged at a place in Berlin called Kreuzberg. And this is where we started a movement. And it was in this movement that we came together also as women, but I would like to point out on the reasons why the movement took place. We were fighting at the time the asylum system, a racist and a colonial asylum system, and some of the things that we were protesting was a residence fleeced law. And this was a law that anybody who was applying for asylum was compelled to follow, that once you're registered in one district, you are not allowed to move to the next district. And for us, we started questioning why were we being kept as criminals or suspects. The second thing that we were protesting in this camp was the voucher system, which was very dehumanizing because in the social support you were supposed to get in terms of your upkeep, it came in forms of a voucher, which was very dehumanizing. The third, we were demanding to learn the German language because every letter that came for your asylum process came in the highest level of German, yet we were not allowed to learn the German language. The fourth thing that we were demanding was the right to work, unlike how the state projected that we were there to live on a social welfare system. We were demanding the right to work. And the fifth, we were demanding to stop deportation. And then there was a sixth, which we were demanding to break the Lager system. So out of that movement, which lasted for 2 years, then International Women's Space was born within that movement.
Yeah. So the person you're targeting, the women or all the person that is targeted by your organization, what are some of the stories that you can share with us?
It is very different. I first want to acknowledge that I want to bring into the perspective of why we focus on the refugee and migrant women, because that's the only way that we are termed when we come to Europe. And when we, for example, flee our countries or come to Europe, then there are things that we are confronted with that there's usually no possibility to bring out. And some of these things is to bring into focus or perspective as to why people are leaving their countries, whether you become a refugee or you become a migrant, because it's a process, and why and how challenging the system is, and bringing the political aspect of the topic of migration, because it hugely affects us. And then, of course, confront the narrative of that the Black woman is not, there's this narrative that the Black woman is supposed to be, how do you call it? We stay at home, we conform to gender norms, that we are not organized, we are not political. That was also something else that we decided to confront as women fleeing from different parts.
Let's have a short pause with an excerpt of your book, We Exist We Are, and we will come just after that.
Well, I came to Germany a year and a half ago. Before I did the interview, I was fine. I never had any problems in the Bamberg camp. People who get a negative decision, especially the Congolese, have problems. You understand? They said the German government sent security guards to hit people, to torture people, and to do just about anything so they leave the country. But I always said no. That was not true. That the German government will not do things like that. After I did my interview, I received a rejection letter. That is when I first started having problems at the camp. They sent 2 guards, a woman and a man, a bit like gangsters. And in fact, these guards were not Germans, they were foreigners who have succeeded, who work in a camp. Those of us whose papers have been refused, these guards show up. They hurt us, you understand? They came and knocked on my door. I was not there. My neighbor called me. She told me, Fatu, 2 guards are here to see you. They have some papers and I know it is for you. Your picture is on it. That night, after I had gone to bed, 2 guards came around again, but not the same ones. They gave me a piece of paper and told me, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, you have to go to this office. They did not tell me why. The next day, I went to the office where we receive our Ausweis, identity papers. I was told that I was summoned at 9 a.m. the next morning. When I arrived the next day, the guy gave me papers, a lot of papers. He said, you have to sign there to get the passport. I asked him which passport he meant. The Congolese passport, he replied. I told him that I didn't have the papers, that I didn't even know how to get them. And besides, I said, I don't understand everything you were saying. Can you find someone who speaks French? The people in the office were speaking German and English, so I did not understand much. He then became aggressive, without respect. You understand? He started talking, and saying, what are these people doing here? And things like that.
JenniferKamau, you published the book, We Exist We Are, some years ago, and you are relating some stories of asylum-seeking women in it. You are relating them. So how are things today? Have they changed?
I think I wouldn't say they have changed much, even though there's a slight difference. Because, for example, the story you are talking about was a story that we published because of the situation, especially the anchor centrums in Bamberg. Bamberg is a very horrible place to go through the asylum process. And this was a model project of an anchor center. An anchor center simply means that it's an arrival center, the processing of your asylum center, and a deportation center. So you find people are stationed in one place for 2 years. And then when she talks about the Kangalis, there is when your country is deemed safe, then there are more challenges when you come from a so-called safe country. But then, of course, when someone talks about Kangalis, she doesn't want to be recognized. So we respect the anonymity of the person, because she wants to tell her story, but she doesn't want to be identified who she is. And for us, the interest is to give spaces to these testimonies. And at least in that time, because the anchor centers were a model project that nobody knew about, we began to publish these stories and started to make protest in these anchor centers, to bring it to to make it public that there are such centers that were being created and were very inhumane. And of course, it took a very political decision, because it was then understood with these stories, women even started bringing out the challenges they faced. Once you're in the anchor centers, even, for example, getting birth certificates when you give birth was a very challenging thing. And then people began to politicize these challenges that were happening. It's, of course, everywhere. These challenges are everywhere. But I think the best thing that we have done is to find a space to bring out these stories. And then we can confront the relevant authorities onto the subjects that touch on the stories that women are talking about. We can seek audience with the necessary authorities. We can have discussions with the community. We can confront, everything that we need to confront in terms of what the women are talking about.
Yeah. The conditions that you described in your book, and some at least, are also related to like other groups of people. What makes you target women in particular?
We target women in particular because in the time when we started International Women's Space, there was only 30% of the women migrated. The rest was 70%. And we started to question, does it mean when people are fleeing, their problems are not as many as for the women as for the men? So we started to kind of first wanted to understand, why are women not being, the number is different. And then, of course, we started to understand the challenges of women fleeing. Some of them had to stay behind to stay with the children, or the challenges in terms of the process of fleeing or migrating. And then, of course, we understood that besides the asylum system, there are challenges that women are confronted with just by the fact that they are women. And these challenges are not discussed even within the asylum system. That is, most of it is the gender-based violence that women are faced with before or after or within the asylum system, or fleeing. These are the things that we wanted to bring into the limelight. And that's why our focus point is women. And then, of course, understand different women from different parts of the world. That's why in the testimonies, for example, even in the first book, we have testimonies from women from different parts of the world. We have from Afghanistan, we have from Iran, we have from Turkey. And the whole idea is to bring this forms of gender-based violence that affect women all over the world and their similarities, because they are all the same. And understand from a political perspective how patriarchy affects women as a whole, and the patriarchal system in whichever part of the world.
Yeah.